This is Newsmax TV. I'm Ashley Martella. We're very pleased to be joined by Representative Jim Jordan. The Ohio Republican was elected last month to a third term in the House, and he's the incoming chairman of the Republican Study Committee. That's a group organized to advance a conservative social and economic agenda in Congress. Welcome to Newsmax, Representative.
My pleasure. Good to be with you, Ashley.
The ball is back in your court now. The Senate has passed a measure to keep tax rates at current levels. It goes to the House. At its core is a deal Republicans struck with President Obama. Do you think it's a good plan, and do you think it'll pass in time to prevent taxes from going up for all Americans?
Yeah, I mean, I do think something is going to pass, which is I guess, in some ways positive. But this bill is good news and bad news. The good news is the rates aren't going to go up. The bad news is the inheritance tax does in fact go up. It's zero this year, as everyone knows, and it's going to go back up to 35%. And there's a bunch of spending in this bill. So I have real problems with it, and I plan on voting no. Although, look, I understand that we can't have rates going up, but I think I do think we could have gotten a better deal. And I think, frankly, even if this thing would lapse and we would come back in January, I tell people it's simple arithmetic. The odds get better, the numbers get better for us, and those, with those new freshmen coming in, 63 net gain. I think we have a much better chance of getting a permanent extension of the rates and getting things in place without this increase in spending.
You'd prefer it that way, I take it.
Heck yeah, I would. I mean, look, that's what the election was about, actually. The election was about, quit the crazy spending, keep the tax rates in place, but quit the crazy spending. And what do we have a bill in front of us that says, okay, we're going to keep the rates in place for a little while, temporary, not permanent, and we're going to increase spending with this unemployment insurance is not paid for, with the refundable tax credits that aren't that's just spending. So that's what the Americans spoke out against, and yet first major piece of legislation is going to have the just increase in spending.
Income tax rates are one issue, but many Republicans favor a wholesale overhaul of the entire U.S. tax system. Do House Republicans have anything on the drawing board regarding the tax reform?
Yeah, in a broad context, we need a much simpler system with a lower rate and one that's simplified without all the hundreds and hundreds of different credits and deductions and different things in place. There are some credits and deductions I think make sense, but a more simple, lower rate, flat rate system would be, I think, advantageous to families, advantageous to business owners. The key is, though, when you talk about reforming the tax code, that you actually have a lower tax burden on families and small business owners. To me, that's the most important thing, reducing the overall tax burden so that we can have job creation and so that families can keep more of what they earn.
Now, briefly on another matter, the House passes and sends to the Senate a repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell military policy. How do you feel about that?
No, I was a strong no. I mean, I think this is a bad decision. More importantly, our officers in the field think this is the wrong call. I like what General Amos had to say with the Marine Corps general, who said, this is not what our men and women in uniform need, who are currently fighting in two theaters, both Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, this is just the wrong thing to do, and frankly, at the wrong time. So I was opposed to it, and hopefully it will not get through the Senate, and that hopefully it will not change.
Okay, you're a member of the House Budget Committee. The House flipped to Republican control largely because of Democrat runaway spending. Yet over in the Senate, Harry Reid wants to pass a pork-laden $1.1 trillion spending bill. Is the Senate ignoring the message of voters last month, in your opinion, and isn't all spending supposed to begin in the House?
Yeah, well, you're right on both. They're certainly ignoring the American people, but that's consistent with this Congress. I mean, think about what we have seen in the last 2 years, whether it was cap and trade, which is going to increase energy costs and add to the cost of every small business owner out there that Americans were opposed to, and yet the House went ahead and passed it, whether it was this Obamacare, which a vast majority of Americans were opposed to, and yet the Democrat-controlled Congress went ahead and passed it, the stimulus package, which the people were opposed to, yet they went ahead and passed it. So what they're doing now in the lame duck session with this ridiculous omnibus spending bill is just par for the course. They have had very little respect for the American taxpayers over the last 2 years, and so why should we expect it to change here in the lame duck session? Obviously, they did not get the message of November 2nd, and the truth is they're not adhering to the Constitution, which, as you pointed out, Ashley, spending matters are in fact supposed to start in the House of Representatives, and both on this tax bill, which went to the Senate first, and now this omnibus that they're adding even more to, I think demonstrate this a lack of respect for American taxpayers.
Are there constitutional issues involved here?
I think so on the tax bill in particular, because that bill started in the Senate, and as you've indicated, as I've talked about, there is new levels, billions and billions of dollars of new spending in the bill.
Your colleague, Representative Tom Price, whom you're succeeding as RSC chair, is urging President Obama to veto that spending bill, noting there are $8 billion worth of earmarks in it. What do you say to that?
I think Tom is exactly right. Tom's been a great leader of the RSC and a friend and a mentor to me. I think he is right on target by urging the president to do what he said. You know, he said he wants earmark reform. He said he's tired of all the earmarks. He should, in fact, veto this bill. And you remember, it was Dr. Price who had the resolution to say none of these big matters should come up in the lame duck session. They should have been dealt with either prior to the election or, frankly, wait till the new Congress, because the American people made such a loud and clear message, sent such a loud and clear message on November 2nd. Unfortunately, Dr. Price's resolution to limit what could happen in the lame duck session was not adopted. But Tom's exactly right on this.
All right, you're also on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. The incoming chairman, Representative Darrell Issa, vows many investigations into government waste. What would you like to see investigated first?
I think you look at the regulatory structure that's imposed on many businesses that I think is problematic for job creation and a growing economy. I think you look at some of the more obvious things, like just how, in fact, some of the czars in the administration, what power they have, how their salaries are working, etc. I think it's across the board. I think you look at the healthcare issue. One of the things that I think also is important, you look at exactly how all these so-called stimulus dollars are being spent. Recovery.gov, the website, which was, citing phantom districts, the 56th district in Arizona, even though Arizona has nothing close to that many congressional districts. So I think you look at all those things. But in particular, the focus we've had is how TARP dollars are being spent, how stimulus dollars are being spent, and then just the broader context of overall waste in the federal government.
Republicans calling for the repeal of the Democrats' health care law plan to defund key elements of it in the House. Are you and the Republican Study Committee on board with that?
Heck yes, we are. One of the first votes that I think you're going to see the new Congress take and the new majority take is a bill to repeal Obamacare. I think we should do that, and then in fact let the process play out. If the Senate can pass that, great. If it gets to the president and he vetoes it, then we come back and we pull up individual sections and we repeal individual sections, and then ultimately we get into the budget and appropriations process, and that's where we say, okay, no money in these particular appropriation bills will be used to implement Obamacare. So I do think you go after the dollars, and you have the real fight with the White House, because I think the American people on November 2nd said three things. They said repeal Obamacare, they said don't raise taxes, and they said quit the crazy spending. And Obamacare represents all three of those. I mean, it's the health care thing in particular, but it has huge tax increases in it, and it's going to cause ridiculous levels of spending for the federal government as well. So I think we have to do that, and I'm certainly committed to.
So your strategy would be to first repeal the whole thing as is, and if that bounces back, then to eviscerate portions of it.
Exactly. And then ultimately go after the dollars, because that may be the only way we have a chance to ultimately stop it, is to not allow dollars to be used for its implementation.
And finally, Representative, the approval rating of Congress has plunged to just 13%, the lowest in the history of the Gallup poll. Would you say that rating is well-deserved? And what do you hope the new Congress does to address that kind of voter discontent?
Certainly is well-deserved, and I'm surprised that there's 13% who think that Congress is doing a good job. I mean, you think about the taxing, the spending, the regulating, the borrowing, the $1.3 trillion deficit, the $14 trillion national debt. I mean, this is unbelievable. The total disrespect for the American taxpayer that the current Congress, and I would argue the White House, has displayed over the last 2 years is just amazing. And again, it's why I think you saw what we did see on November 2nd, where the people said, look, we've had it. We are tired of the spending, tired of the taxing, tired of the regulation, tired of big government telling us what to do, and we want it to stop. And that's the charge we have. And RSC's mission is to make sure Republicans act like Republicans, that we do exactly what we told the voters we were going to do when we ran for the job. And we look forward to pursuing that and meeting that challenge as we go forward.
Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, thanks so much and good luck in the new session.
Great, thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.